Good evening and welcome everyone to the regular meeting of the Santa Clarita Valley Water Agency Board of Directors for January 17th, 2023. With that, I'd like to call the meeting to order and move on to item 2, Pledge of Allegiance. And on this occasion, I would like to ask former Director Kelly, who is also a Vietnam War combat veteran, to lead us in the pledge tonight. Mr. Kelly.
Thank you very much. Ready to begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice for all. Thank you, RJ. Announcements for tonight. This meeting is being conducted in person at the Rio Vista Water Treatment Plant boardroom. As a convenience to the public, members of the public may also participate virtually by logging into the agency's Zoom meeting. Any member of the public may listen to the meeting or make comments to the board using the call-in number or Zoom webinar link. In the event there is a disruption of service which prevents the agency from broadcasting the meeting to members of the public, using either the call-in option or internet-based service, this meeting will not be postponed or rescheduled, but will continue without remote participation. The remote participation option is being provided as a convenience to the public and is not required. Members of the public are welcome to attend the meeting in person. To participate in public comment from your computer, tablet, or smartphone, when I announce the agenda item you wish to speak on, click the raise hand feature in Zoom and you will be notified when it is your turn to speak. Please unmute when requested. To participate in public comment via phone, when I announce the agenda item you wish to speak on, dial *9 to raise your hand. When it is your turn to speak, dial *6 to unmute. We do have members of the public present, so I would like to remind the public there are public comment cards in the lobby right outside the boardroom here. Would help facilitate the public comment process. The procedures for tonight's meeting are as follows. I will introduce each agenda item. Staff will present. I will ask for public comments. I will then ask for discussion and questions from board members. Please raise your hand. Once concluded, I will ask for a motion and a second. After any further discussion, the board secretary will call for the roll call votes. All directors are present for tonight's meeting. And we can move on to agenda item 3, public comment. Members of the public may comment as to items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the agency that are not on the agenda at this time. We ask that members of the public wishing to comment on items that are listed on this agenda do so at the time each item is considered. I do have 2 written public comment cards. So at this time, I would like to ask Ms. Dunn, if she would please come to the podium and make your public comment on item 3.
Well, good evening. Joan Dunn, member of this community. I have a few things. You know how I am about recycled water, so you're going to hear about it again. It appears you have been depriving the majority of Santa Clarita customers, citizens actually, of the recycled water and has supplied it to private developers. And that's been going on a long time. And I've had all these excuses, oh, you can't do it because of this, or you can't do it. I think it's been 20 years since I heard all these, have heard all these excuses. But anyway, I was looking at some of your paperwork, and this is about stage 2 drought bulletin. And I made a copy of it, which I can give to the secretary. But one of the things in here I thought was very interesting. It said prohibited measures, irrigating public turf medians with potable water. And see, I've been saying now that we had this drought, it was showing that something was wrong, that we were still watering with public water, which is potable water. Now, the other thing, I was looking at some contracts, and this was when CLWA bought the Valencia Water Company stock. And there was a lot of information that at that time, the directors didn't even get, because it was a snap. We're going to do this right now. And they didn't have time to read all the contracts. Well, and I asked Public Records at the time for all of that extra information. One of the things that was in there was on page 25, and this is the settlement. So you should have that because it's a contract. Let's see, it appears that, let me see. Okay, part of the agreement with the New Holland Lennar at that time and the agency agreed that they would provide water for future New Hall Ranch projects, notwithstanding any contrary rule, regulation, policy, resolution, or ordinance of the agency, the company, the PUC, or LAFCO. We gave all that for this agreement. And I think that some of the new directors probably should ask for those documents and read them themselves, because I'm not making this up. It's actually a record. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dunn. Mr. Dunn, would you like to come to the podium and make your public comment?
Ed Dunn, Canyon Country, been here since 1969. She seemed to run out of water, so recycled water. So I thought I'd continue some of that on. If you look at the urban water management plans that you participate in every 5 years, in the last two, you said, we will serve New Hall Ranch. You didn't say you would ever serve the city or the locals that are producing it. That's 10 years' time. Two of the books, the manuals, say that. You people state that. Maybe to cover your tail, but what a waste. You tell us that we are going to have to cut back to 2 days a week or whatever, and you got it going anywhere outside the city. And this statement now that she just read you that has to do with the contract, when have you ever made any statement that you were ever going to serve any recycled water in the city? And I think that, in my opinion, that's criminal. I don't know how that can continue to go on, that we have it and we're running it down the river till it's used for someone else. On two different occasions, because of a little bit of public pressure, you said, oh, well, we got that scheduled for 34. Another time you said, well, it's scheduled for 29. Well, you're making sure it's scheduled out there far enough so that when it's time for the city to get some, you'll say it's all tied up. And so the city will continue to keep producing it, paying for it, and others will get it. Now, I think that part could be criminal, and I think it needs looking into. So you could get busy at any time now and start supplying, especially when the recycled water is right along the pipeline. That clean Burmite water that you're having thrown away could go right in the pipes for those medians. The well water that's being pumped at Shangri-La to keep it flooded, that could go right in the pipes. It's just like the Santa Cruz wells out there. It's drinkable water. You aren't doing any of that. You're just totally mismanaging it. I don't know why we have such a large organization and they can't do anything that's right, it seems. And then I was a little disturbed last time when some of the new directors got picked on because they wanted diversity. We've wanted diversity here for 30 years. No, we got the cabal that's running it all the time. There's no diversity whatsoever. And it's planned, and the appointments are planned. Everything is just planned out just greatly. And so is the one when you get your SB 634, and we're not through exposing how that happened yet either, but it's coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. You know, I normally appreciate your comments, and I do appreciate these comments. You made some pretty serious accusations. I think we've reported to you on a number of occasions that the staff is and board is working diligently to make preparations to distribute recycled water as it becomes available from the Sand District. But I would invite Mr. Stone or Mr. Cole if they'd like to respond to Mr. Dunn's most current comments that are pretty serious in nature. Go ahead.
We're just gonna switch.
Here comes the backup.
Got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much, April. I appreciate it. Yeah, just pardon the pause. There was a need to reboot the microphone and we want to make sure everybody can hear it. So appreciate the help of our staff on that. Yeah, I think we have covered the recycled water issue previously. However, it probably bears a quick summary. The agency, along with the predecessor agencies, Castaic, Newhall, and Valencia Water Company and Santa Clarita Division, have developed plans for distribution systems for recycled water in various parts of the community based on a cost analysis of what would be the most effective locations for that. Shortly after preparing to finalize a recycled water master plan, a related case or an unrelated case became a related case, the case against the sanitation district by the now defunct ACWA group over chloride project implementation, basically put that project in limbo as the court determined that there would need to be a redo of any environmental documentation and consultation with Fish and Wildlife. And so the portion of water that's already in the river going through the treatment plants is not currently available from a permitting standpoint. We do have plans, which we are embarking on right now, to first do some environmentally related work with the regulatory agency and a body called, I think it's SCWRP, Southern California Coastal Water Research Project, to help put some analysis and hopefully permitting authority comfort behind the question, the answer to the question, how much water could come out of the river that's currently discharged from the treatment plants to be able to be used in our community. So that piece of it is on a path. It is unfortunately frustratingly long path, but we hope that by taking that approach, we will get a durable relationship and regulatory outcome with the state board and Fish and Wildlife that would allow us to proceed with enough certainty that we don't hang out an awful lot of capital facilities without a water source in the community for that. So that water is currently being discharged to the river. In some years, we probably derive a benefit from recharge that occurs, and certainly accrues to the benefit of the watershed as a whole in terms of a resource. But as far as the community, we aren't yet able to pull that back out for use. None of the proposals, I should caution, would take all of the water discharged out of the river. There is prior to this court case, there was consensus number of about 13.5 million gallons a day that would stay in, and the portion above that could be available to take out. We'll see what the new outcome is of that. On the other front, through the diligent efforts of our staff and particularly Assistant General Manager Steve Cole, the water that isn't already in the river that was accruing as each of these new homes. And I might add that when someone says we're giving water to a developer, unless they built their own house, their infrastructure was also given to a developer. It was given to the owner of the new house that was built by the developer, and the developers don't live in the homes. People who benefit from the water facilities we build are the people that live in the homes. That being said, we were able to secure a process and an accounting structure approved by the regional board by which new homes that are built accrue to available recycled water that we were able to use in the community. And as the so-called next drop program, and that is accruing month by month, year by year, while we go through this other process. And we are able to put that water to use and have been putting it to use in the community as it becomes available. So that's kind of a short summary. And we hope to have more, process, progress, and outcomes as we go.
Thank you for that, Mr. Stone. We don't have any other public comment cards, Madam Secretary. Do we have a member of the public online who will make public comment on item 3?
We do not.
Very good. We can move on to item 4, approval of the agenda. Are there any changes, additions, or modifications to the agenda from our board? Seeing none, the agenda is hereby approved. We can move on to item 5, special procedures. Madam Secretary, is our presenter for 5.1 with us tonight?
Does not appear he is here yet. Would you like to move 5.1?
Yes, we'll move 5.1. We have a presentation from CSDA for item 5.1 that the presenter is not with us quite yet. We'll move that along. We can move on to item 5.2. Approval of a resolution honoring and commending former Santa Clarita Valley Water Agency Director R.J. Kelly for his service and dedication. Please be reminded that this item is just for approval of the resolution. We will have an opportunity to make public comment, commending and honoring Mr. Kelly in 5.4. So please, this is only for the resolution. Before I go to board comments, are there any public comments on item 5.2?
There is not.
Very good. We can take
I thought that we needed a motion. I was
right.
gonna make a motion.
Director Bronstein.
I was gonna make a motion to
Go
approve.
ahead.
I'm making a motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Director Bronstein. Second by Director Colley. Is there any further discussion on the resolution? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
As I call your name, please state how you vote. Director Cooper,
Yes.
Director Marks,
Yes.
Director Peterson,
Yes.
Director Colley,
Yes.
Director Armitage,
Yes.
Director Bronstein,
Yes.
Vice President Gutzeit,
Yes.
Vice President Ossohowski,
Yes.
President Martin.
Yes.
Thank you. This resolution is approved, and that's resolution number SCV-328.
Thank you, Board. And we can move on to item 5.3, approve 5.3, approve a resolution honoring and commending former Santa Clarita Valley Water Agency Director Jerry Gladback for his service and dedication. Same comment goes to this as we made for 5.2. This is just for approval of the resolution. There'll be ample opportunity for comments commending our former Director Gladback in item 5.5. Are there any public comments on item 5.3?
There is not.
There is none. I would entertain a motion for approval of the resolution 5.3. Director Bronstein.
I'll make the motion again.
All right, motion by Director Bronstein, Vice President Ossohowski.
I'll second.
Second by Vice President Ossohowski. Is there any further discussion? If there's not, we can, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
As I call your name, please state how you vote. Director Armitage,
Yes.
Director Peterson,
Yes.
Director Bronstein,
Yes.
Director Marks,
Yes.
Director Colley,
Yes.
Director Cooper,
Yes.
Vice President Ozahowski,
Yes.
Vice President Gutzeit,
Yes.
President Martin.
Yes.
Thank you. This resolution is approved, and that's resolution number SCV 329.
Thank you, Board. We now can move on to item 5.4, but before we move to that item, I'd like to recognize the dignitaries who are in the audience tonight that are here to make comments on either or both of our departing directors. Mayor Gibbs is here. Thank you, Mayor Gibbs, for joining us tonight. I have field representative for Assemblywoman Chavo. That's Andrew Savon. Thank you, Andrew, for joining us. Tammy Stevens is here from Congressman Garcia's office. Thank you, Ms. Stevens. We have Natalie Bartanian from Supervisor Barker's office, field representative. Thank you for attending. And we will have certificates, and I will do the presentation on those from Senator Scott Wilkes' office for both Director Kelly and Director Gladbeck. So with that, we can move to item 5.4, recognition of former Santa Clarita Valley Water Agency Director R.J. Kelly for his dedicated service. With that, I am going to move to the podium for the presentation. We're done? Is this on? Okay, good. We're going to try to do it tonight without break.
Feels awfully strange being on this side of the desk.
All right, to give everyone a full understanding of contributions that former Director Kelly has made during his duration as a director, which is quite a number of years, I'll recite to you the resolution that the board just approved. Resolution of the Board of Directors, the Santa Clarita Valley Water Agency, honoring, commending R.J. Kelly for his service and dedication. Whereas R.J. Kelly was appointed to the Castaic Lake Water Agency Board of Directors in April of 2003 and was then elected to the position in November of 2006, where he served through December 2017. And whereas Mr. Kelly served as the board vice president of the Castaic Lake Water Agency from January 2005 to December 2008, and board president from January 2009 to December 2010. And whereas Mr. Kelly received the 2010 CSDA President of the Year for the Castaic Lake Water Agency at the September 2010 CSDA Annual Conference. And whereas Mr. Kelly served on the Santa Clarita Valley Water Agency Board of Directors from January 2018 through 2022, serving as board vice president from January 2018 to February 2019. And whereas Mr. Kelly voted and was active in the support of the vision to combine Castaic Lake Water Agency and the Newhall County Water District to form the Santa Clarita Valley Water Agency. And whereas Mr. Kelly served on several agency committees over his 19 years of service as a director, most recently as chair of the agency's Finance and Administration Committee, and as a member of the Public Outreach and Legislation Committee, as well as serving on the agency's Financing Corporation, Upper Santa Clara Valley Joint Powers Authority, and currently serves.
Sorry.
I'm
Time's up.
Can I have some more time, Madam Secretary?
That was it.
And served as director on the Devil's Den Water District and as an alternate on the SCV GSA board. And whereas Mr. Kelly supported the agency's vision mission statement of providing responsible water stewardship to ensure the Santa Clara Valley has reliable supplies of high quality water at a reasonable cost. And whereas the Santa Clara Valley Water Agency Board of Directors deems it most fitting that Mr. Kelly's outstanding service to the Santa Clarita Valley Water Agency and the customers it serves be appropriately recognized. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Santa Clarita Valley Water Agency Board of Directors appreciates and recognizes R.J. Kelly for his over 19 years of service to the Board of Directors of the Castaic Lake Water Agency and the Santa Clarita Valley Water Agency, and thanks him for his support of the board, employees, and customers of the Santa Clarita Valley Water Agency through his many significant contributions and leadership during his time as a board member. Congratulations, RJ.
Thank you, sir.
Well, we're going to do a couple of things. We have a water drop. And we'll hold both of them. Well, let me put my glasses on. I want that. Thank you, RJ. I have one more document to read, and I'm going to allow the attending dignitaries to make the comments. I think we'll have let you make your remarks. This is a certificate of recognition presented to RJ Kelly, Director, SCV Water. All right, brief pause there. I'll explain that later. This is from Senator Scott Wilk, our Senator Scott Wilk. It is my honor to celebrate over 19 years of service to Castaic Lake Water Agency and Santa Clara Valley Water Agency. Thank you for your leadership and dedication to ensure safe water needs for our community. Thank you, RJ. Okay, well, I'm going to let you make your comments, and I'll invite others to come to the podium to recognize.
Well, I think first I'd really like to recognize the board for making a great decision to elect President Martin for another couple of years. I think it's great punishment for him. But two, I think he's been a great leader over the last several years, and look forward to him continuing to make some wise decisions and work well with the board. So thank you very much for that. Second, I think I'd really like to apologize to the water agency. If I'd have known there was going to be a month of rain when I retired, I might have retired a few years ago. And then maybe we might have a couple of lakes here instead of aquifers. But anyway, I'm really enjoying the rain, and I assume everybody else is, until you have to drive in it, that is. And in 19 years is a long time. You know, it's half of my life. Well, okay. So maybe a third of my life. I'm not sure. I'd really like to say thanks to a few past directors, whether they're listening or not. But looking at Director Peter Kavonis and Dina Stafu, Bill Pexey, and Bob DePremio, they were all extremely important in my education, my leadership, making things count with the board, understanding water, and allowing me to continue for 19 years because of their support. And of course, I think one of the biggest supporters that we just lost this year, Director, Jerry Gladback, who was a leader in all facets of life, not just water. And I look forward to remembering him and continuing to say my prayers for him. And of course, we'll get together with Donna and make sure that she has whatever support she needs also. So with the great leadership of these people, that's what I consider my success here. Don't time out on me now. Also, I don't think you can get away from talking about staff. Staff has been so phenomenal. The committees that I've been on for 19 years, the leadership of the staff and the direction, the knowledge, their commitment to the agency, but also their commitment to making the committees important and knowledgeable and on the path to making right decisions. So I'd really like to talk, to thank all of those staff members. And of course, we really know that President Martin is not the leader of the board. The leader of the board is really Madam Secretary April Jacobs. And I'd like to thank her for all the years that she's been supportive of the board, the directors, and of course myself also. And I wish you many more and a lot more success. There was a movie out quite some time ago called Good Morning Vietnam with Robin Williams. And sometimes when I come to these board meetings, it feels like I'm still at war. But you know what? We work out our differences, we come to conclusions. We're not always going to be on the same wavelength. But the bottom line is what we think about and make decisions on is good for the board, or we think it's good for the board. And even though the board may be made up of a majority, I think we cannot discount the common sense that some directors have. I've learned over the years to appreciate Director Colley, even though he's always on the other side of the fence when it comes to finance, but he's got great explanations on why. And once the decision is made, he moves forward and supports it. And I thank you very much for that. There's been many directors here now, Director, Cooper and Cooper, and he's about the only one left. But we got a lot of new faces here, and I look forward to the new faces stepping up, coming in with some great decisions, some great ideas, and continuing to make this board one of the most powerful and creative boards in California. And, I could probably go on for another 30 seconds or so, but I'll probably go ahead and stop here. I do think that the success of this organization, we cannot forget how we fought and finally approved and came up with the best decision that we've had in a long time, and that was bringing our general manager on. And I want to thank you very much, Matt Stone, for being involved here. And so with that, thank you very much.
Thank you, RJ. Before we go on to board comments, and I know a lot of the board directors would like to speak up, I'd like to ask those in attendance, starting with Mayor Gibbs, if you'd like to come forward and make your presentation.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, President Martin, Board of Directors. Thank you for having me tonight. Gary, the resolution basically had all of my notes stolen out of it, so I'm not sure I have anything too fresh to add, but I want to say two things, I think, in particular. First, RJ, I think you, in your comments tonight, you captured exactly what I would hope for anybody who has served their community and is getting ready for the next step of their life. You weren't up here talking about you. You were here talking about the people and the board and the community, everybody who was involved in creating this incredible place that we have, this incredible agency that we have. And I think that's so important. I hope people recognize that you don't do things alone. We don't accomplish things alone. But on that note, I would like to add one more thank you on your behalf to your wife, Patty. Now, I've over the years, I've spent more time with Patty than RJ. It's nothing nefarious, I promise you. But being a younger man in politics now, I know, and I believe all of us here on this board know how difficult it is on our families. the time commitments, the time away, the time that we're not spending with our loved ones. We're doing so for reasons that we believe are bigger than ourselves. And honestly, a lot of times that our spouses that are the ones who have to bear the brunt of all that. And I think Patty can probably share in that misery a little bit, just like my wife can. But I've been blessed to know her. She has taught me so much about just politics in general and how hard it is and how committed you have to be to get here, and not only be here, but be successful here. And RJ, I think after 19 years, you can say that you've done that yourself as well. So on behalf of myself and the city of Santa Clarita, I want to thank you and provide the certificate on behalf of your service.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I know. Well, all right. You can have it. Not even an auto pen. That's a real signature right there.
And they spell RJ right.
We did. Both letters.
Thank you. Tammy, would you like to come forward? And Tammy Stevens from Congressman Garcia's office.
Good evening. RJ, come up here. I'm going to talk to you. I don't want to have to look back. Okay, so it's an honor to be here on behalf of Congressman Garcia to honor you, RJ. What a testament, 19 years, the dedication and commitment that you've had to your community. That's a long time. I don't think I've done anything for 19 years, so that is quite amazing. I know sometimes this can be a thankless job, but the congressman definitely recognized how important clean and safe water is one of the most important, if not the most important thing that a community can give to their residents. So thank you on behalf of the congressman, to not only you, RJ, but to the board and to the staff, because it is a gift. So with that, I have a certificate. You know, I'm sure you've had a few of these on behalf of Congressman Garcia. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I know we'll see you around at other organizations. Yeah, you bet.
Andrew, would you like to come forward? Andrew Taban from Congress, newly elected Assemblywoman Charbonneau's office.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here on behalf of the Assemblywoman's office to recognize former Director Kelly. You know, as you were speaking, actually, it was 19 years, half your life. That's a long time, you know? So, but, you know, you mentioned something that really kind of stuck with me. And unlike Mayor Gibbs, I can say as a young man, I think what you said is really critical about, you know, the new board and all the great work that they're going to do. But what I didn't hear you mention was a lot of the good work that newest members do are under the foundation of what was laid before them. And so on behalf of the Assemblywoman's office, I'd like to thank you for your years of service and commitment to the water agency, and also to the residents of our community. So thank you for all of your years of service. And I'm sure it's not over yet. Public service never leaves the blood. So thank you on behalf of the Assemblywoman.
Give her my best. Thank you.
Ms. Vartanian, do you have something to present from the supervisor's office?
Kind of feels like Christmas.
It's weird when you're the last one and it's hard to come up with things that haven't already been said. And I don't have a clever comeback for Mayor Gibbs, but Director Kelly, on behalf of Supervisor Barger, she does have this beautiful certificate for you. She wanted to thank you for your 19 years of service and everything you've done, starting with the Castaic Lake Water Agency, and you're involved in merging those and everything that comes with that, and so many other things. She was really appreciative of everything that you've done. And as Andrew mentioned, I know it's not over. So with that, congratulations. And I do have this certificate on behalf of Supervisor Barger. Thank you. Congrats.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I would like to say that it's not over, because I've really been concentrating on veterans and the community. And I look forward to really getting more involved in supporting more veterans for all their needs, whether it be mental health, physical health, or getting the retirements and the pensions and things that they so deserve. So thank you very much.
Before I turn it over to the board to continue the commendation for your service. We have any other members of the public who would like to comment before we go to board discussion? Mr. Dunn, would you like to come forward?
Well, I too have admired Mr. Kelly because of serving and putting his time in. I'm a veteran myself. I don't know if we're of the same conflicts, but we're sharing some of the same duties, and I salute him. I see a parallel with Mr. Kelly and some other public member that has done this country. Well, in fact, this other public member came out of the conflict permanently injured, just like Mr. Kelly had some permanent injuries, and served his country as a senator, and finally served his country as a president, and then gave his life as a president. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a birthday holiday, but he still was the type of individual that after being in the military, have permanent injuries and come out and work as hard as they do, and as Mr. Kelly has, to serve the public. I congratulate that kind of person. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. Madam Secretary, do we have any public comments online?
We do not.
We do not. We now can open it to board discussion. Are there any directors who would like to make comment on item 5.4? Director Armitage.
Thank you. And I will keep it brief because Director Kelly was always encouraging me to keep my comments short and brief in F&A. Right? He would always call on me and say, one question, right? Director Kelly, I truly am sad that you are no longer on this board. I have fully come to appreciate your quiet wisdom, your thoughtful input, and your humor that has been on display today. So you offered kind critique in the time that I spent with you on this board. As a newbie, I very much appreciated that. And I always felt that you were fair and very open-minded. So for that, I thank you, and I wish you nothing but health and joy in your next chapter as you go on to do wonderful things. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Armitage. Any other director would like to pick up? Director Cooper.
RJ, I too want to thank you for your time on the board. You know, I remember way back when you came on, and this board was made up pretty much of people from the water industry, from engineering, and you came on and were kind of one of the first new guys on there that didn't have that water background, but you had the finance background, which has been a tremendous asset to the agency over the years. But one of the things you really did is you took it upon yourself to get out there and learn the water business. You were very active. You went to conferences. You went to anything you could to learn the water business in California, and you did a tremendous job at that. You've been a great asset to this board, and I appreciate the time that I've got to work with you. We didn't always agree on everything, but I always valued your opinion of what you saw, and I appreciated working with you. Thank you, RJ.
Director Peterson.
I have to go back to my history with the water agency, Castaic Lake Water Agency. And when I got to meet Director Kelly one morning in his kitchen having breakfast, I always appreciate his questions and his need for answers as far as when I was dealing with the Sand Canyon Reservoir project. And he was really wonderful with that. Those kind of questions really put me on my toes, as he does continually now in this time as a fellow Rotarian. He is a good, quick wit, and I really appreciate him because of that. And along with his service to the community of veterans, this community and the community of veterans in our country. I really appreciate that, RJ, and wish you more and more happiness and good health.
Vice President Guzay.
Yeah, I wanted to share a couple memories of RJ. I met RJ as a director on Newhall Water, and he was always a smiling, joking face. We'd often run into each other at hotel check-in for the water conferences, and he helped me meet people and, learn the water business as well. And I think was, I'm going to credit as, building the initial bridges to the formation of SCV Water through his friendship and openness. And then together here, we were on finance together and always provided a good perspective, long-term history of the agency, but always open to, other views as well. So I think it's been great knowing you. I wish you well, and I hope I see you around town. So thank you, RJ.
Director Bronstein.
Thank you. So first of all, thank you for your service and to the country, and thank you for your service to our community. I don't remember if it was a luncheon event or for VIA or the Chamber of Commerce, but that was the first time that I actually met you face to face. And while there were other people that did not seem very excited to meet me, I was very excited to meet all the board members, because it was the first time of actually meeting them in person. RJ actually took the time. He's like, come out aside a second. And he wanted to introduce himself. And I was like really touched and encouraged by that little gesture of kindness. And having been on the F&A committee with you and watching your leadership, it was always very inspiring. Never lost your cool, always very precise and courteous. And anytime a decision or a disagreement happened, it never felt ever personal. It was always insightful, and it was always kind of a matter of fact thing. So I really, really appreciate between that, just being, again, like just a great guy. Let's put it that way, a good human. So I hope that I'm sure you're going to be doing a lot more in this community. I look forward to seeing what that is, and if you need that garden space that we were talking about for the veterans, I look forward to seeing and supporting you and what you do next. So thank you.
Director Colley.
So RJ, I think I appreciate the shout out. You're correct. We don't always agree, and I appreciate the fact that you're able to be wrong with such grace. I also appreciate your work with veterans, and I especially am appreciative of the work that you've done in this community to recognize the fallen that we have had in this valley. The Gold Star parents in this valley appreciate those efforts particularly, and I think on behalf of them, I feel okay to pass on their appreciation for your recognition of the families of the fallen and the fallen. So thank you very much for that.
Any other comments from the board? Well, RJ, this is it for you. I will make the last comments for you, and I've served with you for almost 10 years. It's hard to believe, but I came on during a very quiet time in Castaic Lake's history. As soon as the CLWA acquired all the Valencia Water Company stock, I was appointed to the board. You recall that was a very quiet, peaceful time on the board. And I learned a lot in a very short time, and I learned that you had, over the years, I think I can point to at least 3 areas other than what Director Cooper's already said, your ramp up with your water knowledge and your contributions in that area. But in the area of finance, you will always hold staff's feet to the fire on protecting the ratepayer money. You were always an advocate to protect staff, provide for them to make sure they were well compensated and had the benefits that they deserved. And I think you did protect the ratepayers on a continual basis. And to that end, I appreciate being a ratepayer for 45 years. I appreciate your efforts. You will be missed. You're a good friend. I enjoyed the many times we spent together at various conference locations around the state. And you and Patty have always been great friends, and I will miss you. And I have nothing but the best wishes for you as you proceed into your retired life, to appreciate your grandchildren and what lies ahead for you. Thank you very much, RJ. With that, we can move on to item 5.5, presentation of a resolution and water drop to Donna Gladbach in recognition for former Santa Clarita Valley Water Agency Director Jerry Gladbach for his distinguished service. I will move to the podium to make a presentation, but before I do that, I want to clarify why it's happening tonight and not earlier. Of course, we know we lost dear friend Jerry Gladbach, a friend to all of us, in July. But during that time, it didn't seem appropriate to proceed with this kind of recognition. But I think as we got towards the end of the year, I said we've got to recognize Jerry's many years of service. And with that, I will move to the podium and make the presentation. I'll make sure this is on. It's not a light. Are you sure this is on? I guess it is. Okay. Donna, can you join me at the podium? I have to go back and get my glasses. All right. The board on item 5.3 approved the following resolution recognizing the service of Jerry Gladbach. Resolution of the Board of Directors of the Santa Clarita Valley Water Agency honoring and commending E.G. Jerry Gladbach for his service and dedication. Whereas E.G. Jerry Gladbach previously served on the Castaic Lake Water Agency Board of Directors from January 1985 through December 2017, and whereas Mr. Gladbach had served as board president for the Castaic Lake Water Agency from January 1987 through December 1990, and whereas Mr. Gladbach served on the Santa Clarita Valley Water Agency Board of Directors from January 2018 through July 2022, serving as board vice president from February 2020 to July 2022. And whereas Mr. Gladbach served on several agency committees over his 37.5 years of service as a director, serving as chair of the agency's Public Outreach and Legislation Committee, and a member of the Finance and Administration Committee, as well as serving on the agency's Financing Corporation and Upper Santa Clara Valley Joint Powers Authority as a director on the Devil's Den Water District. And whereas Mr. Gladback voted and was active in his support of the vision to combine Castaic Lake Water Agency and Newhall County Water District to form the Santa Clarita Valley Water Agency. And whereas Mr. Gladback was actively involved in Aqua, to say the least, by the way, throughout his career, sitting on the board from 1998 to July 2022, and serving as both Aqua's vice president from 2002 to 2003, and board president from 2004 through 2005, as well as serving on numerous Aqua committees. And whereas Mr. Gladback also contributed significantly to the Aqua JPIA, serving on the board from 2002 to July 2022, and as its board president from 2010 to July 2022. And whereas Mr. Gladback served as a member of several boards, including the National Water Resources Association, LAFCO, Cal LAFCO's, and receiving Cal LAFCO's Outstanding Commissioner Award in 2013 and Cal LAFCO's Lifetime Achievement Award in 2021. And whereas Mr. Gladback supported the agency's mission statement of providing responsible water stewardship to ensure the Santa Clarita Valley has reliable supplies of high-quality water at a reasonable cost. And whereas the Santa Clarita Valley Water Agency Board of Directors deem it most fitting that Mr. Gladback's outstanding service to the Santa Clarita Valley Water Agency and customers it serves be appropriately recognized. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Santa Clarita Valley Water Agency Board of Directors appreciates and recognizes E.G. Jerry Gladback for his 37 and a half years of service to the Board of Directors of the Castaic Lake Water Agency and the Santa Clarita Valley Water Agency, and thanks him for his support of board employees and customers of the Santa Clarita Valley Water Agency through his many significant contributions and leadership during his time as a board member. Signed by me, the board president. I want to get a picture. This is presented to you, and you can. I will. This is your water drop. You've seen this before. In recognition of over 37 and a half years of dedication of service as a director for the Castaic Lake Water Agency and Santa Clarita Valley Water Agency, January 1985 to July 2022. Beautiful. Get rid of the glass. Thank you, Donna. You'll be given a moment to make a few comments after we go forward. You want to take this with you, or we'll put it over here? I don't want to break it. I'm good at that. Thank you, Donna. If you would, others are going to come and speak. If you'd like to take a seat, okay. I'm going to go ahead and do Senator Wilk's presentation while I'm up here. This is from Senator Scott Wilk, Certificate of Recognition presented to Jerry Gladback, Director, SCV Water, January 1985, July 2022. It is my honor to celebrate over 37 years of service to Castaic Lake Water Agency and Santa Clarita Valley Water Agency. I will always appreciate your leadership and dedication to ensure the safe water needs of our community. January 17th, 2023, signed by Senator Scott Wilk. This is for you.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. With that, I'd like to call Mayor Gibbs to come make his presentation.
Thank you, President Martin. My goodness, what a resume. I don't think I've ever seen a proclamation where it literally had a staple and you got to fold it over to continue it. In fact, before Jerry got involved, I'm pretty sure water only had one hydrogen atom in it. Donna, I'm sorry, Donna. No, please. I got thinking about, when Gary's sitting here reading through this, I'm reminded of that. I'm going to get the quote wrong, but I'm reminded of, Sir Isaac Newton, who used to say, if I can see far, it's because I stand on the shoulder of giants. I don't think anybody in this room would argue that there was no bigger giant in the water world than Jerry Gladbeck. And I'm honestly, I'm ill-equipped to truly talk about what he provided and did for not just Santa Clarita, but the entire state when it comes to water. But what we can't forget when we think about Jerry is what a decent man he was. There was no kinder man in this city than Jerry Gladbeck. When I first started to get involved, Jerry was one of the first elected officials that I got to sit down and truly get to meet and get to know. And he was the first elected official who ever supported me in my ventures to run for council. And I can't forget that. Jerry was always smiling. There was no politics in Jerry. It didn't matter where you stood on the aisle with anything. He loved you if you were a good person, and he treated everybody with the utmost respect and decency. And I think we can all take a lesson from the example that Jerry sent. If you want to be successful in life, in politics and service, just look back at what Jerry provided for us. And Donna, I want to thank you for being here. We miss him, and we're blessed to have known him, and we thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, thanks. That's just wow.
Ms. Stevens, can you come to the podium?
Again, it's a great honor to be here to honor Jerry on this evening. Obviously, his resume speaks for itself, but I want to echo Mayor Gibbs's sentiments about his heart and his character. He was such a warm and kind gentleman and truly dedicated to his community. And the congressman wanted me to make sure that he conveyed that to you, and that he will always have a place in Santa Clarita's heart. So thank you. Thank you for sharing him with our community, because I know it's always, the spouse always is a part of it. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. And so does the congressman.
Thank you so much.
Andrew, can you come forward?
So when we got the certificate request on behalf of the agency, like Mayor Gibbs said, I have never seen a resolution that does require a staple before. And so with almost 4 decades of service, we recognize that former Director Gladbeck was a staple of this community and this agency for all the work that he's put in. And we also recognize that the work of an elected is nothing without the support of their spouse and family. And so we would like to thank you for sharing him with us. We did bring a presentation today. However, for that many years of service, we do recognize that something greater is needed. So please accept this certificate on behalf of Assemblywoman Schiavo, but also we have submitted a request, and government functions very slowly. It's just what it is. But on behalf of the state of California and the California State Assembly, we are receiving a resolution in honor of former Director Gladbeck, and to you as thanking you for the whole family for the service that he's committed to the residents. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Ms. Vartanian, would you like to come forward?
Thank you, Donna. Thank you for being here today. I remember when we were here a few months back, when we were honoring Director Gladbeck's contributions, and everyone spoke to what a legacy he had created. And I unfortunately never had the pleasure of meeting him, and I really wish I did, just based on what everyone is saying, what a kind individual he was and the impact he made. But again, I'll say this again, and I said this last time, I know that his legacy is going to carry on forever in this community. It's going to definitely have an impact, especially on the younger generations like my colleagues. The reason I don't have anything with me today is because a few months back, Supervisor Barger did adjourn a Board of Supervisors meeting in Director Gladbeck's memory, and she sent a beautiful adjournment scroll, to your home, which I hope you received. Okay, you received it. I'm glad you did. She really wanted to honor his memory, and so she sent that over. But thank you so much again for sharing your husband with us. Thank you.
Do we have any members of the public in the audience who would like to make public comment? Ms. Dunn, come forward.
Good evening. I often wondered, knowing Jerry going all the time here and there and everywhere up to Sacramento and all around, and I always thought about his wife, how lucky he was to have a spouse that would allow him to do all those things that he felt he had to do. And I often thought about her. A lot of times she was by herself. And, you know, that dedication, it wasn't only Jerry, but his wife shared in that. And I certainly want to commend her for being such a good partner. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dunn. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to make public comment? Before I turn it over to comments online, possible comments, I wanted to make a comment about the length of the resolution. This was such a challenge for April to do this. So out of necessity, I think she had to go with the Reader's Digest version. But his accomplishments go far beyond what's on the resolution. So with that, I will go back to my seat and we'll entertain comments and discussion from the board. Wait, you go ahead. Holly, go ahead and make your comments. Pardon me? No, you're welcome to do it now.
Okay.
You're up.
I just wanted to thank everyone for the kindness you've shown to me since Jerry passed away. I can't express how deeply I've appreciated the cards, the notes, the letters, the flowers, and especially those who've kept in touch. It's been sort of a lonely time. As you know, we all miss Jerry a lot. I really miss him a lot. And I thought I'd mention to you that maybe it's not such a coincidence that all of a sudden we've had all this rain. You know, he does have a special option up there. And I would think that one of the first things he did when he got to heaven, he was going to say, "Dear Lord, we need water in the Santa Clarita Valley." And it was funny because I was talking to Jerry's sister last week and I told her about that. And she said, "Darn," she said, "I was thinking the very same thing." So I just want to thank all of you for the appreciation you have for the work that Jerry did. And I want to thank you for the legacy of what you've come up with for the scholarship that will allow what Jerry did to make a statement and make a difference for the future of the community, hoping young people will be encouraged to go into the water industry because of what he did. And again, I thank you so very much. I wish that he could be here tonight to share in this moment. I know he's looking down and watching us, but I wish he could be here. But in lieu of that, again, I just want to say thank you. And I also want to thank Matt Stone for all of the kind words you've spoken about him. Just so happened on Saturday, our son Eric was here and he stops in the house and I have a copy of the beautiful page you put into the program for a conference that took place in California this year. And you said so many beautiful things, including mentioning Jerry's almost limited energy in getting things done for the water industry. And I thank you for that. And he wanted to thank you. I also want to specifically thank Peter for all of the help that he has provided. At one point, Jerry was going to run for election this year, and they put together a really interesting door hanger they were using in the campaign. And I wanted to have one as a memory. And since they had not done the full production, it was almost impossible to find any of them. But Peter managed to find some and send them to me, and I sent it to some of the family members, and I really appreciate that. And I appreciate all the help that we received, and being in touch with Gary. And of course, our long-term friends, Bill and Valerie Cooper, have also been so helpful. And also, of course, RJ and Patty. So again, thank you all, and God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna, for those wonderful words for Jerry. And we can now open it up to board, and Director Cooper is first in line. Go ahead, Director Cooper.
Donna, we've had the pleasure of knowing each other a long time, and we've had a lot of dinners together, and you know, I know the problem that April had in putting that proclamation together. I saw how small the type was because she couldn't get it all on one page. And there are many more things that needed to be there than are able to put on. Jerry was absolutely Mr. Water. And he was Mr. Santa Clarita Valley. And it was all about the people in the valley, and it was about doing the right thing. He was a true gentleman. I can remember when I first came on the board, and we were over the liquor store in Newhall. That's where our office was at the time. And Jerry was the one that really kind of took me under his wing and tried to help me along as a new board member. When you say the energy that he had, we always referred to him as the Energizer Bunny, is that Jerry was always go, go, go. It was National Water Resources, it was Aqua, it was SDA, it was he was on, and LAFCO and Cal LAFCO, and he was on so many boards, and that's what kept him going. He loved that. He liked being involved in that. And again, it was about doing the right thing in the end. When Jerry was, and I've told this to people before, is when Jerry became president of Aqua, and which is a very nice high-level position. The board, we got together, there was Bill Pexy and I think Bob DePremio was there at the time. And when we would go to the meetings, the president always had their special table at the dinners. And then we kind of had our table at for the agency. But we thought about getting ourselves T-shirts that said Jerry's Kids. And that's the way we felt, is Jerry was the guy that helped lead us, and we were Jerry's kids. I can't tell you how much I miss him. He's just a fine gentleman.
Director Marks.
I have so many memories of Jerry and how kind he was. And when I first came to the agency in 2008, he was one of the people who was so enthusiastic and welcoming. I'll tell you, from a staff perspective, sometimes it was hard to keep up with him. He knew so many people in the water industry and was so generous in sharing those connections to help me personally be successful. And more importantly, as others have said, to help this agency being successful. But he was always so up and kind. That's a tremendous loss. But I'm so appreciative for the time that I had working
Vice President Ozahuski.
Mrs. Gladback, one of the first things that I've done when I got elected was thank Vice President Jerry Gladback for his enormous contributions to the water agency, to California, to our ratepayers. As you can see by the resolution, gigantic, enormous resume. I'm going to keep it short, but for all the things that I thanked him, I also would like to thank you for coming here today and accepting this resolution on his behalf. And thank you for sharing him with us, the board and the ratepayers. It certainly is a sacrifice, as Mayor Gibson said in his speech. And so thank you. Back to you, President Martin.
Vice President Gutzeit.
Thanks for coming, Donna. You and Jerry were amongst the first people I met when I became a board member of New All Water in 2003. And if people don't realize, water was Jerry's life, but it was a lot of your life too. Saw you at many, many conferences. I'm sure you, in the end, probably certainly knew more people than I did. But you were right there by his side everywhere that he went. And so water is part of your family too. And I'm glad that you've gotten support through this time. I want to share echo some of what Mayor Gibbs said about Jerry not being political and being just a good person. I think that's a tremendous model for all of today's people getting involved in politics. I sure wish that was the norm because he was wonderful. And the other thing I will share is he knew everybody. If you said, oh, I wonder, I wanted to go on this tour up at this dam. He's like, oh, I know the guy that runs that plant. I can get you on a tour. Or I wonder if anybody ever looked into this issue with the fish. I know the guy that did the study on that fish, and I'll give him a call. He knew everyone. And one year, and he got to know them personally, which was amazing. People, they may be well networked, but he knew people personally, which was amazing. And I remember one year we were voting on the next president for Aqua. And one thing he said, he knows me and how much I love dogs. And he said, Maria, this lady is really good. She knows a lot about water and she rescues dogs. So, she's a good person. And to know people at that level is amazing. And it was so heartfelt for him. So I'm very lucky to have known him and you. Thank you.
Director Bronstein.
So my very first Aqua conference, I'm nervous trying to get to every place on time and, be a good board director. And he keeps on pulling me every time he sees me in the hall. He's pulling me. He's telling me all these stories, introducing me to people. I'm kind of I'm supposed to. He's like, no, it's fine. And he keeps on telling me all these. He brings people over to share all these other stories, and it was just really fun. It was great to learn all these amazing facts about the I-5 that I never knew about, and water related. And he also made the time to get to know who I was too. He would talk to me about sheep, and because he had them at some point, and he was asking me what kind I have. And then a few months ago, one of my dogs passed, and he actually sent me a card. And I was really, really touched by that. That's not something that just anybody does. So you found yourself a really good human, and I'm sure you miss him a lot, but thank you.
Director Peterson.
Donna, my wife and I met you and Jerry when we first came to the Valley in 2001. And it was a dinner up in Lake Tahoe, actually, when the Aqua used to be up there. And it was such a wonderful time. Got to know Jerry and you actually at that dinner. But I always think about Jerry's later on in my career here in the Valley, when I was a Rotary president. Jerry came to the meeting to talk about the water agency and water in the Valley. And Jerry would get up and he says, you know, this guy over here, your president, knows more about water. Ask him. And I thought, what a nice thing to say, Jerry. So anyway, I appreciate him a lot over the years that I've known him. And thank you, Donna, for coming tonight.
Director Colley. Yeah, Donna, I think the common theme out of almost everybody here is that Jerry had a very impressive resume and did a lot of really great things in the state and for the people. And he actually eclipsed that by just being one of the best people I have ever known. Just a phenomenally good person. And that's what I will remember him most. It just being really good. And when you mentioned the rain, I wonder, if that isn't, because we certainly know where he would have gone. So if the Catholics have anything correct and sainthood is a thing, and miracles are caused by the really, really best amongst us that pass, I think you might be onto something. So I would certainly support him for the sainthood I think he deserves. So thank you.
Director Armitage.
Thank you. So I was only able to spend the last couple of years in the same spaces with Jerry. But in that short time, I certainly got a glimpse of all of the wonderful things that those of you who have spent more time with them have shared with us. My initial take and sustained take from Jerry also was that he was professional and very kind. I think the word kindness is kind of what's resonated with me from all the comments we've heard tonight. And I think that's certainly true. And I agree. I'm really excited that we have the scholarship started in his name through Aqua, so that can carry over his name and his legacy into future generations. So I think that's a really wonderful thing as well. So I know he's very missed in many parts of the water world, but more importantly, as Mrs. Gladback pointed out, he's even more missed and more deeply missed by his family. So I just want to share that I continue to think about you, Mrs. Gladback, and your family as well. So thank you.
Has everybody had a chance here? I think we have. My turn. Donna, what can I say that you haven't already heard, that others haven't already said? Jerry's a dear friend. I'll miss him so badly. We will all miss his contributions to the Valley and the Water Agency. His accomplishments in engineering and water, community service, public service are pretty much unmatched. But I think Director Colley said it right. When you get to the end of your life, I think it's important that people remember you as just a gentleman, a nice man, a kind man, one who helps others, one who goes out of his way to introduce all of us to, if you're a new member of the board, hang with Jerry for a while. If people know that you're with Jerry, it opens many doors as far as them recognizing you as a director, as a member of the board. And he did that for me when I came on the board. He went out of his way to introduce me to people he knew, which was just about everyone. And I'll always say, and we've all heard him speak on the floor at Aqua conferences and ballrooms of 1,500 people. And I always referred to Jerry's voice, that's the voice of God. Because when Jerry speaks, not only his style of speaking, his voice so strong, And people recognizes him for his judgment, for his knowledge, for his contributions. And when he supports you, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't Pam Tobin a floor nomination by Jerry, Bill? Okay. Pam Tobin, who's the president of Aqua, she wasn't nominated by the executive committee. Jerry Gladbach stood up in that 1,500 person ballroom and said, I nominate Pam Tobin for, I think at that time it was vice president, right? And darned if Pam Tobin didn't win the vote. People listened to Jerry, and they listened to Jerry for the right reasons. He was honest, he was direct, he was sincere, people trusted him, and he always did the right thing. Our valley lost a great water warrior in Jerry Gladbach, and you lost a wonderful husband and life partner. But I think you should be, at least feel good about a life well lived by Jerry Gladbach in both his personal life and his professional life. And you can't ask for more than that at the end of the line. So with that, we will close this item and wish you well, Donna, and don't be a stranger. Come back, you're always welcome. And I would refer everybody in the audience who hasn't seen the plaque on the wall from the Urban Water Institute, stop there for a minute and read it. And others have mentioned the scholarships. His name will go on. Our agency is sponsoring scholarships, not only scholarships, but internships. He always wanted to help young people come up in the water world. So the agency will be starting internships for young people who need a start in the professional world. So Donna, thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming and joining us tonight. I'll always remember this. Thank you very much. With that, we are going to take a brief recess and enjoy some cookies that are right where I was sitting next to Bill Cooper. There's some cookies over there. We will recess for about 10 minutes so that we can greet each other and enjoy a cookie. And we will reconvene the meeting it is now 8:28. And we will reconvene the meeting at, let's say, 8:40.
Which means we have made sure that we have been as transparent as we possibly can on our website, on any materials that we provide. So congratulations, gentlemen.
me.
I'm going to say one quick word and turn it over to Matt, because this was earned by the work done by staff, mostly the board support staff. But the reason for this award is all the hard work that's done by our staff. So Mr. Stone, if you will.
Thank you. I guess I was going to echo the same thing in my general manager's report tonight. I can cross that one off. But I just wanted to thank that there really is a part that the board plays, and that is in setting policies that call for the sharing and transparency of information, as well as some of the other requirements to receive this certificate. And we appreciate having that as kind of guiding posts for our operation. And then, of course, at the other end of it, our staff, and I would say the brunt of it falls on our administrative staff, and to some degree also technology and web tender staff, since so much is online these days. But I do want to express my appreciation for that. It's one of those things that's an ongoing effort, and we are already starting to try to earn the next one, and appreciate the board's ongoing support for the resources that takes, as well as the staff for trying to be attentive to the needs of public disclosure and transparency. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Do we have any public comment on this item, April?
We do not.
We do not. Do we have any comments or from the board or discussion at all, other than thanking staff for what they did? All right. With that, we can move on to item 6, approval of the consent calendar. There are 2 items on the consent calendar tonight. I would entertain a motion for approval of the consent calendar.
So moved. Good sight.
Motion by Vice President Gutsai.
Seconded, Director Cooper.
Second by Director Cooper. Is there any public comment on the consent calendar?
There is not.
Very good. Is there any discussion or comments or questions from the board? We have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
As I call your name, please state how you vote. Director Marks.
Yes.
Director Cooper.
Yes.
Director Peterson.
Yes.
Director Armitage.
Yes.
Director Bronstein.
Yes.
Director Colley.
Yes.
Vice President Gutsai.
Yes.
Vice President Ozahoski.
Yes.
President Martin.
Yes.
Thank you. The consent calendar is approved, and that includes resolution number SCV-330.
Thank you, board. We can move on to item 7, action items for approval. We have one item on the agenda tonight, item 7.1. I normally ask Mr. Stone if he wants to have any opening remarks. He says, just go ahead. All right. So item 7.1 is to approve a resolution for construction contract with Pacific Hydrotech Corporation. 2, a purchase order to Kennedy Jinks for engineering services during construction. And 3, a purchase order to MKN CPN LLC for construction management and inspection services for the Well 201 Groundwater Improvements Project. Is exempt from CEQA pursuant to the CEQA guidelines, section 15.301, and alternatively section 15.303, and authorize approval of purchase orders. Please note that there was a revised resolution for item 7.1 that was sent out via email and posted to the SCV website and was at our spots here on the dais. Presenter tonight is Shadi Bader from his undisclosed location. Mr. Bader, take it away.
Perfect. Thank you so much, President Martin. Good evening, directors. This is Shadi Bader, Senior Engineer, and the item in front of you tonight is to adopt a resolution to award the construction contract to Pacific Hydrotech Corporation for the construction of the Well 201 VOC Groundwater Treatment Improvements Project. Next slide, please. So here's a general location map showing the Well 201. The Well 201 is located on Valencia Boulevard, right next to Chase Bank and Whole Foods, right across from the Valencia Mall. Next slide, please. Here's the site layout for the Well 201, which includes the additional VOC treatment system. Some of the new improvements are highlighted in yellow. A few years ago, an ion exchange treatment system was installed to treat for perchlorate. The existing well site components are highlighted in green here in front of you. The project will include the addition of 2 granular activated carbon GAC vessels, GAC media that will trap and treat for VOCs, a chemical building, pipeline connection, a backwash tank, a perimeter wall, and a well rehab task, among other improvements. Next slide, please. So here's a 3D rendering showing the components I just mentioned. This gives us a visual representation of what the site will look like once construction is complete. Again, I highlighted some of the components that we'll be installing as part of this project in yellow, and the green components will stay the same. Next slide, please. So this project was advertised online on the agency's Planet Bids channel on October 6, 2022. The project was also advertised in the Signal newspaper on 3 separate dates in October. Bids were electronically received and opened on Planet Bids at 2:00 p.m. on December 19th of 2022. And I'm pleased to report that we received 7 construction bids, with Pacific Hydrotech Corporation came in as the lowest apparent bidder at $7,726,700. The engineer's estimate for this project is around $7.7 million. We have worked previously with Pacific Hydrotech Corp, and they're currently performing few projects for the agency, including the Santa Clara and Hanby Wells PFAS groundwater treatment project and the O. Schmidt filtration plant wash water return and sludge collection project. We would like to also note that this project supports SCV Water Strategic Plan Objective number D.2, which is to proactively install, operate, and maintain groundwater treatment infrastructure to avoid impacts on water supply reliability. Next slide, please. So Kennedy Jenks, the designer and engineer of record for this project, has provided a proposal in front of you to provide engineering services during construction in the amount of $510,000. Next slide, please. MKN also submitted a proposal to provide construction management and inspection services during construction in the amount of $700,000. Both Kennedy Jenks and MKN proposals are on time and materials basis. Next slide, please. So here's the project schedule. We presented this item at the January 5th, 2023 Engineering and Operations Committee, and tonight we're presenting this to the board at the board meeting. And if the board approves this item and proceed with this project, we anticipate issuing a notice to proceed early February 2023. And we're allowing the contractor 425 calendar days to complete the work. So we expect the well to be operational and back into service around summer of 2024. Next slide, please. So with that, staff respectfully requests that the Board of Directors first find the contract agreement exempt from CEQA pursuant to CEQA guidelines, section 15301, which is a minor alteration of existing facilities, and alternatively exempt from CEQA under CEQA guidelines, section 15303, which is a treatment system reflect limited construction of facilities where minor only modifications are made. And second, to adopt a resolution awarding a contract to Pacific Hydrotech Corporation for the Well 201 VOC Treatment Improvements Project in the amount of $7,726,700. And third, to authorize the general manager to execute a purchase order for engineering services during construction with Kennedy Jenks in the amount not to exceed $510,000. And fourth, to authorize the general manager to execute a purchase order for construction management and inspection services with MKN for an amount not to exceed $700,000. So with that, I have completed my presentation, and let me hand it over back to you, President Martin.
Thank you, Shadi. Excellent presentation as usual. Madam Secretary, do we have any public comment online? I have no public comment cards.
We do not.
Very good. Open it up to Director Cooper.
Now, this was reviewed in detail at the engineering committee meeting. We wanted to bring this to the board and show you the location so that you had an understanding of where well 201 is and what the project is. It's very similar to what we all went and saw at whatever the well number is over there off of when we had the grand opening of the treatment process. So this is very similar to that, but it's moving ahead with the processes that we need to do to get wells back into service. The key on this one is that it gets it back into service by summer of 24. And that's a time that we'll need more water, and that'll bring this well back into service. So that's kind of why it's kind of on the, I don't want to say the fast track, but it's moving along quickly. And with that, I would so recommend staff's recommendation.
Vice President Ozahowski.
Just a quick question on page 33 on the board packet and the revised page 33. It's my understanding that only the title was changed at the selected bidder. Is that right?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Okay. Therefore, I second the motion.
Is there any other board discussion or questions? Vice President Gusay.
Just a quick question. The consulting services, were those bid or are those not need to be competitively bid?
Mr. Bond, you'd like to make a comment?
I'd like to go back to Director Orzovsky's question. Not only the title was changed, but there was language in the resolution that was changed. It had to do with approving the CEQA exemption. It had said that we approved the exemption for the contract with Pacific Hydrotech. We changed that to approving the project, which includes not only that contract, but also the 2 purchase orders and the act of construction and the operation of the facility. So it was just a one-word change, but it sort of has a big impact.
Thank you, Mr. Bond.
Shadi can answer that one.
Yeah. Can you just explain?
Sure.
If it wasn't competitively bid, like how do we come up with these consultants?
Of course.
I of course know the name Kennedy Jenks, but are they on a list that we work with regularly, or how are we selecting those supporting consultants?
Absolutely. So both of those consultants are on call list, right? So a few years ago, we went out and we had an RFP on the street to give us proposals from engineering services, right? From engineering consultants. And we selected 22 that the board approved. And prior to a couple of months ago, we advertised proposals on planet bids, just something similar to what we do here with construction contracts. And we get proposals from consultants, and we have a team of multiple engineers and operations. We meet, we evaluate proposals, and we pick the best team for the job, right? So it's a performance-based item. So we look at who's going to do the best job for us, and we pick that team. So it's not a bid per se. It's not a contract bid, just like we did with Pacific Hydrotech or with a construction contract. It's based off from our on-call list, and we send them proposals, RFPs, and we get their proposals back, and we pick the perfect team or the best team to do the job.
Okay, so you are actually getting multiple prices from a few people on the on-call list. Is that what you're saying?
Right. We get few proposals, and we pick the best team. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to understand.
Courtney, do you want to add to that?
Yes, I do. I wanted to clarify the Kennedy Jenks is not one that we went out and did the proposal for. Kennedy Jenks was the design engineer. So we bring back the design engineer to support their design. They review the RFIs, they do that additional work. And although they do present a proposal to us, we didn't do that in a competitive fashion. We aren't seeking multiple proposals because there was only one design engineer. The construction management services, we utilize our on-call, we advertise to all of them, and those go through a competitive review.
and they do provide cost proposals, but again, because those are performance-based, we don't review the cost except as a means of, are we getting the best value for the dollars, but not necessarily selecting the lowest cost.
One last really quick question. So Sade said time and materials. Is it time and materials with a not to exceed cap as stated?
That's correct.
Okay.
So if we are able to be more efficient with our inspection time, then we will not exceed that amount. Same with the engineering services. I would actually say the engineering support is the one that's more likely to be under that cost, because ideally we can resolve issues in-house and only go to the design engineer if there is something that we need addressed. But the construction one, we've gotten pretty good at nailing that number down and getting that bid, and they do tend to use that amount.
Okay. So, but they all are capped, like the one that was, okay. Thank you.
Director Armitage.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Bader. The only question I had also was related to the revised resolution. So thank you for asking that, Vice President Ozahowski. And thank you for pointing out the changes. Mr. Bunn, I guess in the future, it'd be nice to have a red line version if a revision's given to us, because I was trying to quickly find where the differences were and I didn't catch them. So that would be really helpful to help us see that right off.
I did actually prepare a red line version and then mistakenly erased it. So,
okay, thank you.
All right. Director Colley.
Just a real quick question. I don't know if this can be answered in this forum, but can anybody make any comments on cost recovery from those who might have provided us the VOCs?
I believe we have that on the agenda for closed session tonight. Yeah.
Any other comments from the board? I'll make one last comment. Shadi, when you look at the bids that received, it was kind of a wide range. To see that we got a bid so close to the engineer's estimate, I think is testimony to the quality of the design products that were put out and the work that staff does in selecting a good design company to do this. Those bids that are so accurate and so close to the engineer's estimate don't happen by accident. And we appreciate your efforts. And I think we got a good team assembled. And with that, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
As I call your name, please state how you vote. Director Cooper.
Yes.
Director Colley.
Yes.
Director Peterson.
Yes.
Director Bronstein.
Yes.
Director Armitage.
Yes.
Director Marks.
Yes.
Vice President Ozahowski.
Yes.
Vice President Gutzeit.
Yes.
President Martin.
Yes.
Thank you. This item does pass, and that's resolution number SCV-331.
Thank you, staff, and thank you, board. Moving on to item 8. We have a briefing on AB 2449, remote attendance presented tonight by General Counsel Mr. Tom Bunn. Mr. Bunn, please.
good evening, President Martin, members of the board. I'd like to start tonight by introducing my new colleague at Lagerlof, Reed Miller. He's here to observe and learn about how the agency works and how the board works. And frankly, I think he got an excellent start to that from the tributes that were made tonight to RJ Kelly and Jerry Gladback. That showed the accomplishments, but also the commitment to the agency and dedication to the community that we have on this agency. So I'm glad he had an opportunity to see that. Turning to the Brown Act, until January 1, there were two ways to have meetings. There was the pre-pandemic way, where if somebody's having remote meetings, if somebody's going to appear by telephone conference, then you have to post an agenda at the location where they're going to be and have that location be open to the public. Then there is, and I'm using the present tense, AB 361, which was the one that we used in the emergency during the pandemic. And I use the present tense because even though the state of emergency is set to expire February 28th, it's conceivable that it will go longer if we have some kind of surge, or that there'll be another emergency under which that comes into play. And that bill will not sunset until January 1st, 2024. Now, during the pandemic, there was proposed a third method of appearing remotely, and that's AB 2449. And that was originally very broad. It allowed any board member to participate remotely as long as there was a quorum in person and other conditions were met, and those other conditions are basically what's in the final bill. But the legislature did not want to go that broad and ended up with something that I consider pretty narrow. But nevertheless, it does provide an opportunity in some cases for board members to appear remotely. These appearances are in two categories. There's two ways that you can qualify for them, and it's important to know which category, because the just cause requirement is automatic. The board member has to give notice to the agency as soon as possible, up to and including the start of the meeting, if it's not possible to give that notice before that, and provide a general description of the reason. That's the just cause one. The emergency circumstances requirement, however, requires the board member to get permission. So makes a request of the board, supports it with a general description of the reason without disclosing confidential medical information. And the board has to approve the remote appearance in a board meeting. Director Cooper, did you want to ask something?
And I didn't know if you wanted to wait till the end, but in that case, is when it says it needs approval of the board, is that meaning that the request has to be made before the prior board meeting to where the person wants to attend? Is it a prior board meeting and then you have a second?
That's a good question. Ideally, I think the legislature wanted it to happen that way. They say that the board member must request as early as possible, and the board must act as early as possible. But the legislature also recognized that sometimes it comes up at the last minute. And so if that request comes up after the board agenda, if it does it before a board meeting, even the board meeting that one wants to attend, then you can put that as the first item on the agenda of the board meeting. And the board either grants it and the member participates, or denies it, and presumably the member won't be able to participate at all.
I'd like to have Mr. Bond finish his presentation and then entertain public comments before we ask any more questions.
Okay. And just finishing that thought, if the request comes up after the agenda is posted, then you go through the normal procedure that you would with anything that arises after the agenda is posting. You make those factual findings and you go ahead and add that to the agenda. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but some things to note. Travel for just cause is only if it's on the business of the agency or of another state and local agency. So if someone's out on vacation, which is a common reason to participate by phone using the first method, that doesn't count. If you're at your second home, that doesn't count. It has to be on the business of the agency. The member is required to use both audio and visual connection. The agency is given the choice whether to do a hybrid system like this with two-way video, or to have just two-way audio and
webinar kind of thing on the web. But either way, the members are required to use both audio and video. And the other thing that's kind of interesting is if your exemption is because of emergency circumstances, you must disclose to the board whether there are other adults in the room. I'm not sure I know why. In fact, I don't know why that is. I can conceive of a reason in closed session. You don't want other people to be in the room. But I don't know why the legislature added that. President Martin, I'm happy to entertain any further questions.
Very good. I have no public comment cards. April, do we have any public comments online?
We do not.
Excellent. Now we can open up to any questions directors may have. Did you have more to ask, Director Cooper?
Yes, another one, Tom. Is this permissive? We have some regulations that we put into place. Are we required to incorporate these into ours? Or is this that we may adopt these regulations if we wish?
No, this provides a way that a member can choose, at least the just cause ones. It doesn't give it up to the discretion of the agency, although the agency does have to comply with these requirements, communications requirements.
Okay, so this wasn't something that was permissible. This is actually required then in the law.
Well, actually, I take it back. The new section starts, the legislative body of a local agency may use telephone conferencing without complying with the post the agenda and that kind of thing. So because they use the word may, I'd say this is up to the agency.
So we could leave what we have in place and not have to do this then.
Right.
Okay.
That's you caught me a little bit off guard, but that's my opinion now.
Vice President Ozahowski.
So just to confirm your statement right now, we do not have to make any changes to our board policies as they are right now? That's correct. If you choose to do that, and if I would need to look back at the policies, whether they don't permit that kind of thing, or say the only way that you can participate. Could we possibly, have you had a chance to look at section 3 of our board policies and review whether they're in line with this new? No, but I will do so. Okay.
Vice President Goodside.
Yeah, I would. That was the question I was going to ask. But I would like to know the difference between our current policy and this, and if we can just continue doing it the way we are now or not. And what happened to pre-COVID rules? Is that just gone and replaced? The posting and accessible to the public, is that gone?
That was the first one that I said it was. I guess I said it was before January 1st, but it continues.
Okay.
And AB 361 continues as well.
Okay, so this is just in addition to those, not replacing those.
Right.
Okay, interesting. Okay.
The proponents of the bill, I think, started to do some stuff under COVID rules and like that, or their board members like that, so they took it to the legislature. And as I said, they got a lot less than they asked for.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, my reading of it, Mr. Bone, you correct me if I'm wrong, that this would supplement our current policy. We don't need to revise our policy, but we perhaps should add a reference to AB 2449 as a possible avenue for remote attendance, and probably add this board memorandum to our policies so that the directors can have some guidance.
That makes sense, President Martin, and I will look into doing that.
Okay.
I'd like to review the policies and see how they interface with the law.
Okay, sounds good. Director Connolly.
Yeah, I think I got a little lost and just want to make sure I understand two different possibilities. One would be on agency travel. That would be one reason to take advantage of this. And the other would be some sort of a medical emergency where I'm in a hospital or whatever and want to attend a board meeting from the ICU. Is that my understanding?
There are a number of possibilities that are set out in your staff memo. I did not repeat each one.
Okay,
but they're in two categories, and I pointed out that it was important because we're going to have to look it up every time until we get used to these things.
Okay, but not a vacation, not a personal travel.
Right.
But
it's
personal
generally
travel.
Medical or caregiving sort of requirements plus travel on agency business.
Okay.
In general.
Right. That's what I understood. Thank you.
Okay, I kind of repeat again, I would suggest that all directors take this board memorandum, add it to your board policy book until something is resolved in regards to our policy. But our policy as written stands with this as kind of a added possibility. Director Cooper.
Mr. Bunn, one other question. Our policy right now is if there's a need for the board and a director is absent, that the board president can request that director attend remotely. This is kind of saying we can't do that. And that director now would have to have both audio and visual, but only under these circumstances. Unless under the old rule, they would have to post and all of that stuff at their house, wherever they're at. So this is saying we can't do that any longer. Is that correct?
No, because the COVID procedures are still available. So there are now 3 ways for a director to appear remotely. One is by the pre-COVID rules. Second is by AB 361 until next January 1. And the third is by this new procedure, AB 2449, which sunsets in 2026. This is incredibly confusing, actually, and I think the legislature made it more confusing because in the law they restate the provisions. Here's the one that's effective today. Here's the one that's effective in a year. Here's the one that's effective in 3 years, and you're not sure which one you're reading.
Yeah.
So that's just my criticism
I
of the
attempted to
legislature.
read the chaptered version of 2449 and got lost in the jungle. So
Yeah.
So I appreciate
it's my business to straighten it out for you. Yes.
I appreciate you summary. Vice President Ozowski.
Yeah, Mr. Brown, I'd like to echo what Director Cooper mentioned. On page 14 of our board policy, section 3, subsection A, it does state that the board president has that ability to determine whether someone can attend virtually or not. So I think we need to have some sort of a review of section 3 and this new law. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to get too far off track looking at board policy, but other than to recognize this possibly will supplement the board policy. Director Bronstein.
Sorry, I'm also still confused. I'm trying to. So I don't even know. So is this just purely a recommendation of here's a way that you guys can do it if you would like to do it? Is that what this is? Because you said that there's 3 ways to do it, but we had our 4th way of doing it. Well, we had our own. That was the first way. That was pre-pandemic. We're doing it pre-pandemic. Okay. So the pre-pandemic rules mean that our president has the discretion. Okay. I'm sure we'll get more clarity on this. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Seeing no other questions. Thank you, Mr. Bunn. That's very helpful. And I will file this with the board policy for future reference. With that, we can move to item 9, General Manager's Report on Activities, Projects, and Programs. Mr. Bun. Mr. Stone. I had Bun on the brain.
Darn, I was going to hand him my notes.
Well, you can hand it off. Go ahead.
Very good. Thanks. We are back and hitting the ground running on many SCV water initiatives right now. So just one kind of a early flag, I guess, early warning. Our executive team spent a considerable amount of time last week discussing staffing needs and looking forward to the next 2-year budget. So we're trying to be ready for that discussion, and we will spend a bit more time prioritizing and refining that a bit before we bring that forward to the board in the various committees and board process. But just a reminder, our needs continue to evolve both as we respond to new mandates like the Groundwater Sustainability Act and water quality regulations, changing needs such as technology and cybersecurity, and opportunities to increase efficiency through use of staff when we sometimes find outside services are less efficient or more expensive. And so you'll see some of those themes in what we'll be bringing forward. We also had a good chance to talk a little bit with our strategic plan facilitator and get him started thinking about that process this year. And it will be, I promise you, hopefully a really fun and good and productive process that will involve all aspects of the organization, board, management, and staff in updating our strategic plan. Hopefully you've noticed the references to the strategic plan nexus, which I really appreciate that. It's funny how things dovetail, and one of the dovetails I see is by having us go back each time we bring an item to the board, even if it doesn't have a nexus. I think we have one item that's going to be coming up through committee where we say, well, there really isn't a nexus because we hadn't thought of it, but it does tie back to the overarching goal of one of the 5 goals or the 6 goals. So I think it's been a good exercise, and it'll kind of reinvigorate awareness of our current strategic plan as well. At the meeting 2 weeks ago, Director Cooper asked if I had any idea about how the recent wet weather would affect this year's state water project allocation. And at the time, I cautioned that last year we had a very dry 3-month into the rainy season, which, despite a good start, erased all of that wonderful snowpack that we were counting on, and put us in yet another significantly lower than expected allocation. And so I guess in the last 2 weeks, unlike the Chargers, the atmospheric rivers have kept rolling, and the situation. Sorry, Courtney, where are you? He left. Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you can disown them. They went to LA, right? And there was a good update provided, and I think the slides are available as well, that Sarah Fleury gave to the Water Resources Committee last week. And we will continue to give those updates there and here as appropriate. But I thought I'd just work that into the GM report since so much has happened. I think that it's likely DWR will increase, the master of understatement, will increase the current 5% initial allocation to something higher, but they may still remain a little on the cautious side for another month or two. We have 8 to 10 days of dry weather ahead of us now for the last part of January, which is great from a flooding standpoint, but it means we won't be adding too much rain or snow, and that graph will start going sideways again with the dreaded flat line of rainfall in accumulation. Our 8-station index is in Northern California is at 36.7 inches, which is now significantly over average, and it did surpass last year's total. I think 2 weeks ago we were saying it's great, but we're actually still below last year, believe it or not. So that's a good sign. Oroville Reservoir has exceeded 2 million acre feet in storage and is now 57% full, which is about 104% of what you would expect on average for this time of year. And the snowpack looks great. It's interesting when you look historically at about this point in time, there are years that had 30 some odd inches of rainfall by now that ended up being some of the wettest we've had because the rain continued to come in February, March, April. And there are years when that didn't happen and we ended up average or even below average. So it's still, there's this kind of like little nexus point, right? In this time of year, December to January, where it could go either way still, depending on what happens in those spring months. And we're seeing that high pressure start to push everything away. So, which is what we had for 3 solid months last year with I think one storm got through that helped us a bit late in the year. At any rate, just want to kind of point out that's good news. I don't want it to sound like bad news, but we will have to see what happens and monitor that. But it's certainly good news, and the local rainfall here is excellent news, I think, as well. We've gotten a significant amount of local rainfall. Couple other things I'll just note. We were notified by the Bureau of Reclamation that our application for a Water Smart Drought Response Program funding for the S. Wells PFAS treatment project is among those that received the highest ratings and is being considered for an award of funding in the amount of $5 million. So we're pretty happy about that. It's not a done deal yet. Their letter to us was welcome news, but there is more work we'll be doing with them to complete required documentation and working on the agreement. So their process is a little different. Each entity that awards funds, it's a little different. But they do make that award contingent on finishing all that other stuff. So we will do that. My hat's off to our team for this application and the success of it. And I think, for those of you here who've been on the board and watched that process progress over the last several years, from kind of an all hands scramble to we've got sort of a grant, coordination position, an example of another position that we grew into that has really, I think, paid off. And also staff becoming really much more savvy when we have our PFAS biweekly task force meeting. That is one of the items on the agenda, and there are a lot of staff thinking about what sequencing and constantly rearranging the pieces to match timing and parameters of different opportunities. So it's really nice to see that happening. And then I already mentioned my thanks to the board for adopting policies and our staff for implementing them, which has supported our receipt of the certificate of transparency recognition tonight earlier. And I think that's it for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. Are there any public comment, April?
There is not.
Any follow-up questions or comments from Mr. Ford? Director Armitage.
Thank you. I want to get excited about potential grant funding, but I'm not going to say anything yet because I don't want to jinx anything. So I'm going to hold off.
I almost didn't tell you about it tonight, but
yeah.
Bring at least one more piece of good news.
But I also want to thank you for mentioning the strategic plan nexus section that's been added to the reports that I saw today in 6.2 and 7.1. I did notice that, and I should have said something because I was really thankful that was included. I always appreciate seeing the reference to what all the different pieces of work that's happening, how it ties back to the strategic plan objectives. I think that's really important. So thank you for including that as its own section now in the board memos, and for also repeatedly mentioning it in the presentations. I think that's helpful too. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Director Armitage. Any other? Director Bronstein.
How much water did we get?
A lot.
A lot is
I'm not sure I followed the question.
rainfall. Yeah. How much?
Oh, did we get?
Yeah.
I thought you said, do we get?
No.
I was going to say, hopefully
Predict
all we need. Yeah, I only hesitate because there are a couple of different stations in our area, and they are somewhat affected by local terrain. So the gauge down at Pine Street and Newhall tends to be the wettest because I think the terrain there kind of encourages the water to drop. And other gauges are a little bit less, but in general, it's been a great year. And you can see that just, I was out walking along the San Francisco Creek yesterday in between storms right at the end of the day there. And the creek is flowing. It's really flowing, and it's even eroded about a foot down and created a channel. And that's something, as you know, we don't see all that often. It's maybe, 2 or 3 years out of 10 that we get that kind of flow. And it's been a pretty good flow for this year. So,
yeah. Costa Rita's, if anybody wants to come see it, it's gorgeous right now. It's
I bet.
flowing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this will be a good year to do the Falls Trail that you can take from the nature place there. So once they open it.
Vice President Ozahaski.
Yeah, I follow DWR almost daily, especially when it rains, in terms of how much are in our reservoirs. What are the chances for Shasta reaching 3,000 in this month?
3 million or 3,000?
Oh, sorry.
Well, it could be elevation.
Well, it's right now it's 83%. But what are the chances of it reaching its historical average?
Just depends on, if you said this month, I would say probably not great, because I think we're just about out of storms for the next at least the next 8 days. The forecast is, the models are showing high pressure kind of pushing the storms either north or south, which is exactly what we don't like to see, but that's kind of what they look like right now in the models, at least. What happens in February, March is still, things can shift around again, and the storm track can hit it. It doesn't have to go as far south to hit Shasta as it does to hit us. So I'd say stay tuned. Is what makes it so entertaining.
Yeah. Right. Thank you. Yeah. Back to you, President Martin.
Very good. Thank you. Close this out. I'll just say that with regards to the water year going forward, I'm reminded of a T-shirt that I have that says, "It's no sense being pessimistic. It never works." So with that, we can move on to item 10, committee meeting recap reports. For informational purposes only, there is only one committee meeting report, and that's the engineering committee. I think you heard a lot of what went on at that committee already tonight, but are there any questions from the board on the committee reports? Do we have any public comments, April, on item 10?
We do not.
All right, we can move on to item 11, President's report, and I'll try to be brief. On outside the agency conferences and events, the WaterWise - a wet La Nina, how unusual, the January 19th, 2023 via in person or via Zoom starts at 11 a.m. Starts at 8 a.m. The Southern California Water Dialogue on January 25, 2023 from 12 to 1:30 via Zoom. The Southern California Water Coalition, January 27, 2023 at 12 p.m. at the Sheraton Fairplex Hotel and Conference Center. The Urban Water Institute Spring Conference to be held in Palm Springs on February 22 to 24. And the SCV Chamber of Commerce Centennial Celebration Awards and Installation being held at Canyon Country Community Center, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. on February 23. And I also would ask that you refer to the board secretary's emails, as this is not a complete list, but there's too many to list. So if you pay attention to your email, the board secretary usually sends out a notice on every type of meeting that comes before us as a possibility. I will add to this, though, that the January 25 Southern California Water Dialogue meeting is conflicting with the CSDA luncheon that the agency is sponsoring. So I think Vice President Ozahowski is going to attend the water dialogue. Are you scheduled to do that? So I hope, and I know I have to attend I'm going to attend the CSDA luncheon. So I hope Vice President Ozahowski can give us a good report on that presentation on atmospheric rivers. That should be very helpful. Upcoming board meetings, start time at 6 p.m. Special board meeting January 30th. Sexual harassment prevention training for the board of directors. And that it all starts at 6 p.m. The regular board meeting February 7th, 2023, and the regular board meeting on February 21 at 2023, all at 6 p.m. Upcoming committee meetings for the month of February held at Summit Circle, the Engineering Conference Center, February 2, Engineering and Operations, February 8th, Water Resources and Watershed, and February 16th, Public Outreach and Legislation. Upcoming committee meetings for the month of February at Rio Vista would be the February 27th rescheduled Finance and Administration Committee meeting. Please note that the agency will be closed on February 20th in observance of President's Day. That concludes my report. Are there any public comments, April?
There is not.
Are there any questions from the board? Seeing none, we can move on to item 12, AB 1234 reports. There are 5 reports that were posted up to the website and emailed and at each of our spots. Does anyone have another AB 1234 report? Director Cooper.
On the 9th, I attended the Groundwater Sustainability Agency. But if I could, I'd like to go back to the other item on the special districts, North LA County, and then the water dialogue. I want to attend both of them. I'd sure like to hear and I heard from April that is available by Zoom.
Yes, it is.
Is there a way to record that?
Oh, that I don't know.
And then we could get the Zoom thing later on the atmospheric rivers.
Let me check into that. Let me see what I can find out.
Okay, because then we could all see that afterwards. And I think this would be a very good one at the water dialogue.
Yeah, I would be great if we can see it later. Right. Good point. Any other AB 1234s? Director Armitage.
Thank you. On January 9th, I had my one-on-one with General Manager Stone. And we had a great conversation about recycled water, the strategic plan, and some finance issues. So thank you.
Very good. Any other AB 12, Vice President Ozahowski?
So on December 21st last year, 2022, I had my one-on-one meeting with General Manager Matt Stone. I always find these meetings productive as it allows all directors to ask questions, and we always run out of time. Hopefully all of you have the same problem. As always, I'm concerned with staffing and retention. As we move further away from our merger in 2018, we're becoming a one unified agency with individual employees being subject matter experts on specific items, meaning we essentially had 3 people for specific subject source, but now we're moving more to one as we are one agency. So it is important that we continue to recruit well-qualified staff, do our best to retain qualified staff, and offer opportunities for growth to those who meet qualifications and or show potential. I'm always concerned with losing institutional knowledge through retirement or natural attrition. And Mr. Stone, and to your direct reports, so far you guys are doing a great job recruiting great staff, but that is always going to be my concern. Keep what you're doing, and I'll keep bringing this up every year. Back to you, President Martin.
Thank you, Vice President Ozahowski. Seeing no other input or questions from the board, we are now ready to go to item 13, closed session. We will now be going into closed session. The public may stay on the Zoom webinar. Any board members or staff that are connected to the Zoom and are in closed session, please disconnect from Zoom. We will meet in closed session to discuss item 13.1. I've already made the other announcements, so we will now We are scheduled to take a 5-minute break before we go to closed session. Does anybody need a break or should we just roll into closed session? Anybody needs a break, just raise your hand. Pardon me? All right, we're going to take a 5-minute break. It is now 8:40. We will try to resume in closed session at 8:45. We are now out of open session. Move to item 14, announcement of closed session, or rather closed session announcements. Mr. Budd.
President Martin, members of the board met in closed session under section 54956.9 to discuss the case listed in the agenda, and no reportable action was taken.
Thank you, Mr. Budd. We can move to item 15, director requests for future agenda items. Before I ask for a request, I would like to remind the board that future agenda items are something that the whole board should receive information on and would benefit both the public and the board at a regular meeting. An informational item is something that you would like further information on as a director. That can be requested and received from staff, and if applicable, requested for a future agenda item at a later time. Do we have any requests for future? Director Bernstein?
Thank you. So I'm not exactly sure how to ask this, but I would like us to explore the option of removing committees altogether and go to 4 board meetings a month on every Tuesday. I think that especially now that we're now down to 9 directors, would be manageable. I know that oftentimes directors ask for things that happen in other committees. A lot of times we have to do presentations again, and I think that it would help the whole board to be on the same page and getting the same amount of information. As far as director stipends, I think it would just increase by 2 director stipends. I think it would help streamline processes. If we wanted, we could theme it. I mean, whatever's, again, up to staffs, I guess, whatever would help them best, but we could also just have each board meeting be a theme, as in outreach and legislation, F&A, or whatever. I also think that it would help with transparency and accessibility, because everybody's used to us having board meetings on Tuesdays at 6. So that's my pitch.
Thank you very much. We'll take it under consideration. Any other requests for future agenda items? Seeing none, do we have any public comment on item 15?
We do not.
That brings us to item 16, which is adjournment. Thank you all for hanging in there late into the evening, and we are hereby adjourned. Thank you very much.